to.
There we go. You just called me ridiculous.
Well,
okay?
prove me wrong by giving me the evidence. Prove me wrong by giving me the evidence.
I'm just trying to have a decent, empathetic.
No, you accuse me of contempt for Jewish people. That's neither decent nor empathetic.
You're dealing with me is just a perfect example of patronising.
Where's your evidence?
What is up, everybody? Harry here. This is James O'Brien on LBC with a caller named Brett, a conservative counselor who rings in to object to a conversation about Islamophobia following Lee Anderson's comments. And it becomes a genuinely tangled exchange covering hate crime statistics, from the river to the sea, and an unevidenced accusation against a sitting MP. Brett makes a specific checkable claim about hate crime rates between Jewish and Muslim communities in the UK, and I've checked it against actual Home Office data. It's not quite right, though there's a real documented disparity underneath the exaggeration worth stating precisely. Let's get into it carefully. Get subscribed if that's useful to you.
Brett's in Boreham Wood. Brett, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Well, I'm not your demographic. I'm a Tory councillor in Radler, actually, from Boreham Wood.
I thought
you were looking for a Tory voice.
There is. I do not have a demographic, Brett. We deal only in principles and facts on this programme, so I'm sure you are my demographic.
Okay, well, my point is, look, Lee Anderson was wrong in what he said. He was trying to take something, he was using something that Sadiq Khan said in 2017 about moderate Muslims and trying to turn that into something else. He was wrong in saying that. The problem I have with this whole conversation is anti-Semitism as a Jew. Now, what has happened in this conversation, we started with Big Ben projecting what I believe and what 90% of Jewish people believe is a genocidal chant from the river to the sea.
Except when Benjamin Netanyahu puts it in election material.
Yeah, I understand that. Again, I understand that. But I think at the same time, he's doing that as a response to what he's hearing in...
But he's literally... I've seen him holding up a map which has Israel extending from the river to the sea and making it clear that that's his ambition.
Benjamin Netanyahu would likely get taken out, will likely get voted out at the next election. So we'll see.
But he's not, though, is he? He's currently the Prime Minister of Israel. I mean, I take your point, and I believe that you're making the point in good faith, but you can't just gloss over the fact that the man who's currently leading the attack on Gaza routinely deploys the notion of from the river to the sea as an electoral lever.
Again, I don't want to talk about Gaza. I want to talk about.
Well, you have to, because the reason that phrase was projected onto the Elizabeth Tower was precisely because of what's happening in Gaza.
Well, look.
So you can't talk about one without the other,
well,
Brett.
If you want to talk about Gaza,
I don't particularly. I want to talk about Lee Anderson. You brought Gaza into it. I'm not quite sure why.
Okay. Can we start again? So
yeah, of course we can.
We've got a projection of from the river to the sea, which 90%.
No, but we're talking about Gaza now.
You're talking over me. You're talking about over me. Okay, 90% of Jews.
I'm sorry. I am going to talk over you if you say things that are disingenuous. You said we were going to start over and not talk about Gaza.
But it's okay. 90% of Jews believe that chant is anti-Semitic.
Except when Benjamin Netanyahu uses it.
Now, again, I'm trying to talk about anti-Semitism, and you're just trying to talk over it to talk about.
No, I'm not, Brett. I'm trying to point out to you what everybody listening hears. They hear you saying that those words are toxic, but not acknowledging the fact that they're used by Israeli politicians quite regularly.
There are some toxic Israeli politicians. I'm not denying that.
In charge.
At all. In charge. But
and currently overseeing the attack upon the Palestinian people in Gaza, which is what the protests...
Palestinian people, it's an attack on Hamas. And please do not conflate the two. It's an attack on the Hamas terrorist
Mate, the death toll conflates the two.
Well, okay, so let's say 30,000 people. Okay, let's talk about the death toll.
Well, I wanted to talk about Lee Anderson.
James, 1 second, because you wanted to bring this up. 30,000 was talked about in British Parliament plenty of times. That's an inflated number from Hamas. Hamas was at 28,000. Now let's take 11,000 off that. Let's call them terrorists. Okay, so we're left with.
Where does that number come from?
So you think all 29,000 are?
No, I don't know what I think. I'm asking you what you think. Where does that number come from?
I would say that when the IDF and Israel have announced that it's 10 or 11,000 combatants that are being killed, that's quite a...
Okay, just checking number. On your... Well, it's not verifiable. I've checked. They have said that, and it may be true, but why are we having this conversation when we're talking about the Tories' problem with
Okay, well, let's
Islamophobia.
get back. All I said was I believe, and many Jews believe, from the river to the sea is a genocidal
But
charge.
I have to now repeat, except when Benjamin Netanyahu says it.
That's in response. Okay, can we just talk about what?
Well, it doesn't
people are
work like
using?
that, Brett. You say things, I respond to them.
Okay. Can you let me carry on my conversation?
Well, is it going to involve Lee
repeat
Anderson
that,
and the Conservative Party at any
James,
point?
I won't repeat that. So, he was wrong, okay, in saying what he did, but now the conversation has turned to Islamophobia, okay? Any criticism of anything Islam-related is now Islamophobia.
No, that's
now
not true.
Forgotten. Wait, I want to carry on.
Well, you can't say things that aren't true, Brett.
Now we've forgotten, James, about the anti-Semitism, which is absolutely rife, vile, and very, very threatening to the Jewish community. Okay, synagogues are being hounded. Jewish schools, okay, are under threat as well. It's a completely different sort of thing. If you look at the population of Jewish people in the UK, it's 270,000, something thereabouts. Population of Muslims in the UK is 4 million. If you look at the number of incidents of hate crimes between the two religions, they are round about the same, which shows that they're both awful. Of course, anti-Muslim hatred is awful. However, it is incredibly prevalent within, and pretty much 1,000 times more prevalent within the population of Jews. Now, what I'm saying is now we're having this whole conversation about one MP out of 650 who may have said something pretty damn silly, but we've now moved the whole conversation away from anti-Semitism. And how
Well,
we tackle
no, but
that.
Brett,
There
can
are-
I speak
James,
now?
James, I just
No,
want to
you
say
carry
one
on.
thing. There are a number of mosques in the UK. Okay, I am certainly not an Islamophobe. I'm not anti-Muslim, but I'm worried about the prevalence of anti-Semitism within Islam in mosques in the UK.
Okay, here's the thing. So am I. Okay, I'm also worried about the prevalence of Islamophobia, and I think that we probably rightly, given the statistics that you described, spend a lot more time talking about anti-Semitism than we do about Islamophobia. But the reason why this conversation is, I mean, you must understand this, Brett. The reason why this conversation is unfolding in the way that it is on this day is as a direct consequence of a former deputy chairman of the Conservative Party indulging in base Islamophobia. And the fact that you don't want that conversation to be had is just a little odd. I would say to you that both conversations can be held. Why do you want to close one of them down?
I don't. I just
Well,
feel
you did.
that
You've
at the
literally
time-
phoned in
No.
to object to the fact that we're talking about Islamophobia, Brett, and that's just weird.
I think no, it's not weird. And
It
stop
is.
taking things out of context, James.
I'm not, mate.
You're
Everyone's
very
heard the
patronising.
conversation, Brett. Everyone's heard exactly what you said. That is, you rang in to complain that we were talking about Islamophobia.
Well, because of my reasons. We were
I know.
having a proper conversation about anti-Semitism, how to stop it.
Yes,
now we've
and
moved
today we're having a
completely
conversation
the
about
dial
Islamophobia.
Because
Why can't we
people
do
in the
both?
UK, Western people in the UK cannot raise anti-Semitism without raising Islamophobia at the same time.
That's
It's
not
like the
true.
two have to be mutually
That's not
exclusive.
true.
Yes,
We spoke for the duration of Jeremy Corbyn's leadership of the Labour Party about the anti-Semitism
because it was horrendously rampant.
Yes, but you
And
can't
it
keep
is again
contradicting.
now.
You can't keep contradicting yourself. You just said we can't talk about it without bringing Islamophobia into it. I'm reminding you that we can, we do, and we
are
did. So,
talking about
in
three
a couple of
individuals.
sentences, I need a couple of things from you. In a couple of sentences, who do we get permission from to have a conversation about Islamophobia?
And of course, we can have a conversation about Islam.
Thank you. And the second thing is, which currently serving MP would you say stood comparison with Lee Anderson for anti-Semitism that you could compare to any party that you could compare, and be aware of libel laws, that you could compare to what Lee Anderson and Suella Braverman are now saying about Muslims?
Well, I could say that about Muslims.
No, someone who's a serving MP whose anti-Semitism is of a piece with the Islamophobia displayed by Lee Anderson and Suella Braverman.
Oh, I think there's many within the Labour Party still, all the Green parties, many.
But don't have any MPs.
Within the Labour
Go on
Party,
then, who?
there are many.
Who?
Well, Dawn Butler.
Okay, you're accusing Dawn Butler of anti-Semitism.
Yeah, easily.
Okay,
I
and your
think,
evidence?
Some of the things that she says
go on.
online. There
Go
is
on.
absolutely. Look, I think for Jewish people.
No,
have to
you need to
realise
give me
that
the
the
evidence
conversation
now,
is very
Brett.
nuanced. It's very
Respectfully,
nuanced.
you need to give us the evidence now.
Well, I can't just read something. I'm on the phone to you. I can't just read something.
But
off
you've
a tweet
literally
that
just
she
accused
said.
an MP of anti-Semitism. You can't then say I don't have any evidence.
Well, she's in the same boat as Jeremy Corbyn, so pretty much anything that Jeremy
So
Corbyn
the evidence,
she has said,
the evidence.
like I just said, she is basically...
Jeremy Corbyn's not a Labour MP. Dawn Butler is.
Okay.
So,
well,
Brett, the
he was leader of
evidence.
the Labour Party. You're
You're a Conservative councillor accusing a Labour MP of anti-Semitism on national radio, and all I'm asking you for is your evidence, mate.
You're talking about Lee Anderson as a previous deputy chair of the party.
Yes.
I'm talking about Jeremy Corbyn as a previous leader.
No. I said serving MP for a reason, because Keir Starmer has got rid of Jeremy Corbyn. He is tackling anti-Semitism in a way that Rishi Sunak is not tackling Islamophobia. So just once more, in case our lawyers are listening, the evidence that Dawn Butler is anti-Semitic.
Absolutely bang out of order.
The
James.
evidence.
And you should be called out for this.
The
because
evidence.
You're trying to put me into a trap.
No, I asked you a question to which you could have said, I can't think of anyone.
Have a libel, and I think it's disgusting.
Yes, well, I think the evidence is viewed.
Through you. Your listeners see through you.
I'm sure they do,
James.
Brett. But in conclusion, the evidence, please.
I just said it's the same thing as Diane Abbott. Do you want evidence of
Yes.
Diane Abbott and some of the stupid things that she said?
Not stupid, anti-Semitic, from Dawn Butler.
Gingers received the
From
same
Dawn
thing as...
Butler.
Oh, okay. I don't have my phone on me to be able to read through Twitter, but she has said...
But I don't have
aligned
my
with
phone
Jeremy
on me
Corbyn.
to be able to read through Twitter, but I can tell you what Suella Braverman and Lee Anderson have said that's Islamophobic.
Because they are always in the news at the moment, because you're pushing that agenda, because that's exactly
Pushing
what
that
you do.
agenda? That's an interesting trope. What do you mean by that?
You are a funny man, James O'Brien, because you...
You're a
are
Conservative
incredibly
councillor,
patronising.
Brett, in Boreham Wood.
Yes, and...
Accusing
What's that got to do with
politicians
it?
of anti-Semitism without any evidence whatsoever.
No, I'll go through Twitter in a minute, shall I? As soon as I got off this call.
Yeah, if you want, mate.
Honestly, I think you're incredibly patronising.
It's not my fault you've come on the radio and made a fool of
All
yourself.
I've come on is to talk about the Jewish population.
You've come on to
being
complain that
incredibly-
we're having a conversation about Islamophobia, and you've ended up accusing Dawn Butler of anti-Semitism without any evidence
You put me
whatsoever.
in a box, James. You put me in a box. And
Put
now
yourself in a box,
you are
Brett.
purposely showing that you've got absolute contempt for the Jewish population.
So you're
and you
accusing
just
me
show
of
that-
anti-Semitism now.
Oh, I said contempt. Contempt, not anti-Semitism.
What's the
Contempt.
difference?
Well, there is a difference.
What is it?
Well, you haven't said any words that are anti-Jewish hate. However, you're pushing this argument with me, a Jewish person
what's
who
the
came on
evidence
this
for my
call-
contempt for Jewish people then?
Who came on this call...
What's your
to
evidence
talk
for my
about
contempt for Jewish
anti-Semitism
people?
in the UK, to talk about anti-Semitism in the UK.
No, you
and
phoned
allow
a phone in about
Boxing
Islamophobia.
into some sort of problem.
You phoned a phone in about Islamophobia. What's your evidence for my contempt for Jewish people, Brett? I take this quite
Because
seriously,
come
actually.
on,
I think
you
much
tried
of
to
your...
turn-
I think much of
this
your
is-
call has been ridiculous, but I take this very seriously. What's your evidence?
Because you're trying to turn my conversation away from me talking about how Jews feel in the UK at the moment.
It's a conversation about Islamophobia. You phoned in to complain that we were having it. Now tell me what
No,
your
I don't-
evidence is for my contempt for Jewish people, Brett.
Because, do you know what? If I start raising some things like about issues with anti-Semitism in mosques, you're still trying to push me
No,
into
we're
a-
talking about my contempt for Jewish people. Give me some proof.
Because the fact that I've just come on this show as a heartfelt trying to ensure that the Jewish population gets a voice in all of this, instead of turning the conversation specifically to Islamophobia, which is a very...
So by talking about Islamophobia, I'm displaying contempt for the Jewish people, Brett.
No, the fact that you, instead of just listening and having empathy to what I've had to say...
I have empathy
you
for some of the
start
things that
pushing
you've described, but I pick you up on things that are challengeable. Once again, your evidence of my contempt for the Jewish people, apart from the fact that I've been talking about anti-Muslim hatred today.
But do you know what? It'd be worth going on YouGov, doing a poll about the Jewish population, what they think of yourself at this very present moment.
I'd ask you again, what's your evidence for my contempt for
I'll tell
Jewish
you what,
people, Brett? That's a
I'll tell
very
you
serious
what the
allegation that
Jewish
you've made.
population think of James O'Brien at the moment.
Yeah,
Okay?
well, I look forward to it. But in the meantime, your evidence, please.
I've just told you.
No, you
I've
haven't.
just told you that I've come on this show to have a conversation about anti-Semitism being taken away. Because
But it's a phone in about Islamophobia.
No, it started. No, because this all started with Big Ben.
This
Okay?
started with
This all
Lee
started by
Anderson
feelings of
losing the
anti-Semitism.
whip for being Islamophobic, and the question I've asked about 14 times since 10
And
o'clock
what did
this
I say?
morning
What did I
is
say to
how
that?
have
What
the
did I,
Conservative Party
James,
got
what did I say
themselves
to
into
that?
such a mess over
James, what did I
Islamophobia?
say to that?
But
What
I'd
did I
ask
say
you,
to that?
Brett, the question that remains, and we're going to have to
I said
call
he
it a
was
day
wrong.
soon, is your evidence, please, for my contempt for Jewish people. Because ridiculous though you are, I do find that hurtful and
And
offensive.
there we go. There we go. You just called me ridiculous.
Well,
Okay?
prove
So
me
I'm
wrong by
trying to have
giving
a
me the
decent
evidence.
conversation.
Prove me wrong by
Trying to
giving
have-
me the evidence.
I'm just trying to have a decent, empathetic.
No, you accuse me
discussion.
of contempt for Jewish people. That's neither decent
Because
nor
the way that
empathetic.
You're dealing with me is just a perfect example of patronising
Where's your
the Jewish
evidence?
population. Oh my God, it's like I don't know. Sometimes I don't even know why I listen to you. Sometimes
Where's your evidence?
I've just told you. You turned me coming on your show to talk a little bit about anti-Semitism.
On the contrary,
as
Brett.
me being ridiculous.
On the
as me
contrary,
being
you
ridiculous.
rang in to complain that we were having a phone-in about Islamophobia. You've ended up
complain.
accusing Dawn Butler of anti-Semitism and me of contempt for the Jewish people.
Well, do you know
Have a
what?
great
The way
day,
you do-
Brett.
the way you-
Watch the specific hate crime statistic Brett cites, because it's worth checking precisely rather than accepting the scale of the claim at face value. Official Home Office data for the year ending March 2024 shows anti-Semitic hate crimes and anti-Muslim hate crimes were actually fairly close in absolute numbers, around 3,282 to 3,700 incidents targeting Jewish people, and roughly 3,866 to 4,478 targeting Muslims. So Brett's claim that the raw totals are around about the same checks out reasonably well. Where his figure goes wrong is the 1,000 times more prevalent claim about the disparity once population size is accounted for. The real published per capita rate is 106 to 121 religious hate crimes per 10,000 people. For the Jewish population, against 12 per 10,000 for the Muslim population, meaning the Jewish community experiences these crimes at roughly 9 to 10 times the rate of the Muslim community, not 1,000 times. That's still a genuinely serious and significant disparity worth taking seriously on its own terms. And Brett's underlying point that anti-Semitism is disproportionately severe relative to population size holds up. But exaggerating an already real and troubling 9 to 10-fold disparity into a 1,000-fold one doesn't strengthen the point. It just makes an accurate underlying concern easier to dismiss once checked. The exchange about from the river to the sea touches a real and long-running dispute over how that phrase has been used by different parties over time, including some historical Likud platform language referencing sovereignty across that territory. Though the specific claim that Netanyahu routinely uses the phrase in a current campaign material is the kind of precise claim that would need direct sourcing to confirm rather than accept as stated. What's more clearly demonstrable is that the phrase's meaning and the intent behind it depend heavily on who is using it and in what context, which is exactly the kind of nuance a single 90-second radio exchange struggles to do justice to either way. The moment where Brett accuses a sitting MP, Dawn Butler, of anti-Semitism and then cannot produce a single piece of evidence when asked directly is worth treating plainly as its own significant finding, separate from any broader statistic. O'Brien's repeated calm request for evidence isn't a trap. It's the ordinary standard that should apply to any serious accusation made against a named person on national radio, and Brett's inability to meet that standard up to making the accusation confidently is exactly the kind of gap worth naming clearly, regardless of the topic. The underlying tension Brett raises at the start about whether these two conversations, anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, can be had separately or always end up pulled together, is worth taking seriously as a real question about how these debates function in practice, even if his specific handling of it in this call falls apart. O'Brien's answer, that both deserve attention and that Brett phoned in specifically to object to one of them being discussed, is a fair description of what actually happened. But it's also worth noting that plenty of people sincerely worried about anti-Semitism do feel reasonably that it gets less sustained public attention relative to its severity than other forms of hatred, and that frustration doesn't require exaggerating statistics to be a legitimate concern worth hearing. If breakdowns like this are useful to you, get subscribed to Harry Unfiltered, and I'll keep checking the specifics as carefully as this deserves, one call at a time.